You know, Russell Scarecrow, ever since I started this self-isolation thing, it's been a bit lonely inside this house, and while I understand the importance of self-isolation, especially during these times, I have to admit, I am feeling a bit bummed. Oh, not because I've been stuck inside all day watching Tyler Perry movies, those are frightening enough. I really was looking forward to all the new horror releases, titles like A Quiet Place and Antlers. I just can't think of what to review next. I mean, do you have any ideas? No, we're not going to review another Tyler Perry movie. I already told you, I'm feeling crazy enough as it is. We're going to have to do something else. I know! Why don't we do another horror Blu-ray update video? Doesn't that sound amazing? Oh, I have so many new movies to talk about. Cheers. Let's do it, Russell. Welcome back to yet another Around the Clock Frights. I am Josh. I hope you guys are staying safe out there. I know things have been a bit scary right now, but rest assured that this is a safe space. And today, I'm going to be sipping my homemade lemon drop. And I'm going to show off some new horror Blu-rays that I purchased recently. Now, I actually picked all these up right before this whole pandemic thing started. These were all purchased at used movie stores. Various locations, actually. We have this place around here called the House of Used, owned by this very generous man who's been operating it for the last couple of years, and he gave me some really great suggestions, and I can't be more thankful. The name of his store is called the House of Used, so if you're ever in the Mesa or Phoenix area, I would definitely recommend checking it out. But you guys know why we're here. I'm actually very happy with my horror Blu-ray collection at the moment. It's growing a little more, like every month. And I try to stick to movies that I genuinely like or they have some artistic merit. Or if they're part of like a series or a franchise, I'll probably pick them up as well. That's why I have stuff like Annabelle Comes Home and Alien Covenant in here. But I'm going to be talking about these 9 purchases. And to kick things off, we're going to be talking about a mediocre sequel to the 1979 film Alien Covenant, aka the Alien film featuring James Franco, the man who played Tommy Wiseau. Now, more than anything, I remember seeing this in the theater. It was a pretty interesting experience. I saw it with a buddy of mine, and the first thing that we talked about after seeing this movie was the production design. This movie was directed by Ridley Scott, the director of the first Alien, and it definitely looks and feels like an Alien movie. The movie that was released before this, Prometheus, in 2012, that movie didn't necessarily please fans the best. There was some controversy surrounding Prometheus, but it's obvious that the studio, 20th Century Fox, wanted to appease those fans who had been angered by that movie. And this does feel like an Alien movie, but it also has a very bizarre science fiction plot attached to it. To those who have seen it, Michael Fassbender plays this insane robot who has essentially created the aliens. He learned how to create life from nothing. And there's some very, very odd sequences in this movie. There's a sequence where Michael Fassbender is talking to another version of himself, another David android, and they're having this conversation about fingering flutes, and he even ends up kissing himself at one point, and that definitely earned some chuckles from the audience, especially from me. The lead character, played by Catherine Waterston, I believe her name is, I thought she was a generic Ripley clone. I didn't think there was anything special about her. There are some other familiar faces in this movie. I didn't think it was awful. I wouldn't go so far as to saying it was awful. I just thought it was very mediocre. I thought it could have been so much more. The last 20 minutes feel like a run-of-the-mill slasher movie. There's even a moment where these 2 young, attractive individuals are taking a shower together, and the alien actually slaughters them while they're in the shower. And I swear to God, I thought I was watching a Friday the 13th movie. It just seemed very out of place for an Alien movie. But Alien Covenant, overall, pretty mediocre. I'm a completionist, that's why I have it. Speaking of being a completionist, I'm just going to pair the 2 of these together. I picked up Annabelle Creation and the 2019 magnum opus, Annabelle Comes Home. Now, For those of you familiar with our channel, we actually did review Animal Comes Home. We had a lot of fun doing so. And again, I want to get all the movies in the Conjuring franchise. I don't necessarily like either of these films. I thought Annabelle Creation was a little bit better. The director, David F. Sandberg, who became famous for his internet short Lights Out, I thought he did a commendable job with this movie, Annabelle Creation. There were some decent child performances. I thought there were a couple of decent scares, but I have never found the Annabelle doll to be threatening at all. She's even less threatening than Chucky. Now, my friend Thor has made fun of Chucky numerous times because, according to her, you could literally just punch Chucky across the floor. He doesn't really come across as much of a threat. I think even less of Annabelle. She's boring. She's a very boring horror antagonist, and I know some of you might disagree with me because she does have a very creepy look, which, by the way, who in the 9 circles of hell would purchase this doll for their baby's bedroom? It's insane. But luckily, both of these were quite cheap. Annabelle Comes Home. If you want to see my extended thoughts on this movie, please check out our review. And I will say overall, from an entertainment standpoint, I thought Annabelle Comes Home did a little bit better in keeping audiences engaged. It tried to be more creative with its scares. Annabelle isn't the only monster in this movie. There's also a werewolf. There's a demon woman who dresses like a bride. She has like this old raggedy wedding dress on. And this movie had some creative ideas, but the story overall was very, very typical. The lead characters were your run-of-the-mill teen stereotypes. I was a little upset that Patrick Wilson and Vera Farmiga were only in the movie for like 5 minutes. I could have used a lot more of them because I do genuinely enjoy them in the other Conjuring movies. All right. I am a huge, huge fan of Joe Dante. He is a man who actually inspired me to get into filmmaking. I adored his movie Gremlins growing up as a kid. The Howling I actually discovered later in life. It's a pretty effective werewolf movie. It has some incredible practical effects. This was released in 1981, and right off the get-go, the opening scene takes place in this really grungy section of New York City. And let's just say it's a really great opening sequence, and there are just some kick-ass werewolf transformations in this movie. The lead actress, Dee Wallace, who was essentially an actress who played a lot of moms back in the 80s. She was the mother in E.T. the Extraterrestrial. She gives a very good performance in this movie. The ending sequence, which was a little bit tragic, sees Dee Wallace actually transform into a werewolf, and she's an anchor woman, so she essentially spreads the news that werewolves do exist. And I really dig the werewolf effects in this movie. I thought Joe Dante did a very good job. Some of it felt a little bit like a Roger Corman movie, but Joe Dante was actually heavily influenced by Roger Corman. He was actually one of Roger Corman's proteges. So The Howling, if I were to choose between this and An American Werewolf in London, which incidentally came out the same year, I would probably choose An American Werewolf in London. But The Howling is very entertaining, and it was referenced in the 1996 movie Scream. If you remember, there's a sequence in which Jamie Kennedy is working at a video rental store, and this customer asks him where The Howling is, and he points them in the direction of The Howling. So it's definitely earned its place in horror history. All right, guys, you've heard me kind of take a dump on the 1990 adaptation of It. I don't hate Tim Curry as Pennywise. Don't get me wrong. Tim Curry's performance as Pennywise, it was instantly iconic. I mean, the man was solely responsible for many, many children in the 90s to possess this fear of clowns, and rightfully so. But the adult performances in this movie range from mediocre to terrible. Many sequences come off as very soap opera-ish, like overly dramatic, and many sequences feature this kind of cheesy violin score that you might hear in something like The Days of Our Lives. And the child performances are actually quite good in this movie, including a young Seth Green, who plays this really big doofus who does like these cartoonish voices. And you can say that, I guess to many people, this did justice to Stephen King's novel. Personally, I thought the newer versions did a much better job in adapting the novel. Of course, there's the infamous giant rubber spider in the climax of this movie. It looks like an insanely cheap Ray Harryhausen effect. It is embarrassingly cheap looking. But enough people have crapped on this movie's climax. I own it because I'm a Stephen King fanboy. I'm not ashamed to admit it, but there have been better Stephen King movies, especially in recent years. All right, this next one was actually a recommendation. I picked this up at a local chain called Zia Records. I actually have a friend who works at one of the store locations, and he loves the Paranormal Activity movies. And I would say I enjoy probably a handful of them. I don't like the entire series. I would say 1, 3, and believe it or not, 6 are all pretty decent, at least in my opinion. The first Paranormal Activity, of course, it copied the Blair Witch Project formula of having a very low budget, having an incredibly small cast. I believe it was filmed for less than $50,000. I might be wrong about that, but I think I'm right. And just the idea that you can take a digital camera and film a horror movie in your house with 2 unknown actors for presumably less than 50 grand. I have to commend the first Paranormal Activity. The sequels got progressively more ridiculous and, shall I say, bizarre, particularly the marked ones. That's the one that takes place in like this inner city. I wasn't a fan of the marked ones. I just thought it was kind of stupid. Believe it or not, I didn't hate Paranormal Activity 4. I actually thought it did have some good moments. I like the idea of the night vision camera that like captures everything. I thought that was kind of clever. But Paranormal Activity, it's not one of my most cherished horror franchises, but again, I'm a horror completionist, and Paranormal Activity is one of the most popular movie horror series of our time, so of course I had to pick it up. One horror series that I will probably never pick up, at least in its entirety, is Saw. I do not like the Saw movies. The first one even, I thought was kind of mediocre and not all that exciting, although I do respect James Wan as a director. I respect the hell out of him, actually. Shaun of the Dead. This movie made me ask a very tough question. What records of mine would I personally choose to destroy in the midst of a zombie attack? This movie is what really brought Edgar Wright into the mainstream. He had helmed a TV series before this called Spaced. Spaced also starred Simon Pegg. And Edgar Wright and Simon Pegg just make a dynamic duo. Shaun of the Dead features a number of hilarious sequences. I just love the idea that this ordinary, everyday schlub is having to fight off these ravenous zombies. My favorite sequence in the movie is when he's on his way to work, and it feels like a typical morning for him, at least. He's just kind of, shuffling down the street. He's very tired and worn out from the previous day. He's not noticing that there are all these zombies around him, and I just find it really hilarious. Edgar Wright really loves his snap zooms. Like, he'll focus on an object and he'll just zoom in on it really fast. It's kind of become one of his trademarks, and this movie also has an excellent soundtrack. I dig the hell out of the soundtrack to this movie. And, even Nick Frost. Obviously this was the first movie that I saw in the Cornetto trilogy. And what I respect about Nick Frost's performance here is he is a bum, but he's still very likable. On paper, he probably would come across as very unlikable and, just downright lazy, but Nick Frost does make him, very likable and funny. But that's Shaun of the Dead. We're down to 2 more titles. I'm going to take another sip of my lemon drop real quick. By the way, guys, thanks again for joining me. I really appreciate you checking out our channel. If you like this, please subscribe. We would love to bring you some more horrific content. We have a ton of ideas in store, and even though we haven't gotten to review any new releases lately because pretty much everything has been postponed, we do still enjoy making videos for you guys. It's become more than a hobby for us. Honestly, if we could do something like this full time, that would be absolutely amazing. We obviously have a long way to go, but we love your guys' support. Thank you so much again for joining us in these videos. But enough of the sappy talk. Time to move on to the second to last Blu-ray in this video, which is The Strangers, featuring Scarecrow from Batman Begins. I've made that joke before. I think the lead villain in The Strangers looks a bit like Cillian Murphy's Scarecrow from Batman Begins. But The Strangers was directed by Brian Boitano. I'm just kidding. Directed by Brian Bertino. This was his first movie. And, okay, something I have to mention right off the bat. This is a home invasion movie that was released in 2008, I believe. And it doesn't rely on jump scares. Like, there were certain moments where a character will be standing in, like, the foreground, and you'll see one of the villains standing, like, in the shadows behind them, or, like, far away, like, on the other side of the screen. And there's no sound, there's no music, and it's just incredibly effective. It's unbelievably scary. It's pulse-pounding, what can I say? Liv Tyler, I thought, did a very good job in this movie, her and Scott Speedman. And there are some unexpected moments in this movie. There's actually one moment where you think everything is going to be okay, you think they're going to be rescued, but lo and behold, the person who is rescuing them ends up getting shot by the villains. And this movie does keep you on the tips of your toes. It kind of pulls the rug out from you in numerous ways. The Strangers, if anything like this ever happened, like in my house, I would probably run away in terror. I definitely wouldn't stay and face these psychotic villains. If I had the chance, I would probably just run away. But last thing I'll say about The Strangers, this must have had an influence on the makers of the Purge movies. I mean, similar concept, you have these strangers showing up at this family's doorstep. They're wearing masks. They show up for seemingly no reason, although in the Purge, it's because, the government has created this holiday where people get to murder each other legally. But The Strangers, effective. Stay far away from The Strangers Prey at Night, which was the sequel. That movie is dog shit. If I actually had a copy of that Blu-ray, I'd probably set it on fire or feed it to one of my dogs just so they can rip it to shreds, because I really hate that movie. Now, the creme de la creme. This is a Blu-ray purchase I'm very, very proud of. The Universal Classic Monsters Essential Collection. This is a really, really great release. I mean, I love the cover here. You have like all of the classic horror villains, like all next to each other, and just the book that comes with it, like the original House of Horror. It's just jam-packed with all of these amazing bits of trivia, and you learn a lot about the making of these movies. You learn a lot about Jack Pierce, who was responsible for the iconic makeup on many of these characters, and it's just a terrific set overall. This is one of the best Blu-rays that I own. The packaging itself is incredible. The booklet that comes with it, the booklet containing the actual Blu-ray discs, is amazing. And I love how this booklet also contains the original movie posters for each title. Out of all of these, I would have to say my favorite is probably The Bride of Frankenstein, followed closely by Dracula, starring Bela Lugosi. Obviously, these had an instant effect on the horror genre. And, nowadays, people don't talk about them enough. Movie studios are releasing all of these modern updates of classic stories. We just got The Invisible Man, starring Elizabeth Moss, and I just have to say it. These movies are timeless, and they're incredibly atmospheric. I mean, the original Invisible Man features an incredibly entertaining performance by Claude Rains, the terrific Claude Rains. I'd recommend any of the movies in this set. I'm a little bit bummed that The Phantom of the Opera is not the Lon Chaney version of Phantom of the Opera, which was released in 1925. It's the 1943 version, starring Claude Rains, which is decent, and I'd recommend it. But if you can find the Blu-ray release of Phantom of the Opera starring Lon Chaney, I would recommend getting your hands on that. But those are all of my new horror Blu-rays. I'm going to put the book back in here. Well, guys, that just about does it. So, as far as what we have planned next, I would like to talk about one of Wes Craven's more underrated features, that being Red Eye, which was released in 2005. I think that's a really underrated movie. I thought Wes Craven did an incredible job with that. But Thank you again for joining me, guys. I always love talking about horror movies with you. If you have any suggestions as far as what I should purchase next, please put your comments down below. I might do some online shopping here pretty soon. But thank you again, and as always, have a very scary night. And again, please stay safe. I know it's been a bit crazy right now, but we will get through this. And as always, thanks for joining me.